The presidency is an office filled with weighty responsibilities, decisions that shape a nation, and a relentless tide of challenges. But for Andrew Jackson, perhaps the most bizarre issue of his tenure came not in the form of legislation or war, but a gift: an enormous 1,400-pound block of cheese. What started as a symbol of goodwill quickly turned into a smelly, lingering problem, one that Jackson would struggle to solve in a way that befitted his image as a man of the people. The story begins with Colonel Thomas Meacham, a proud dairy farmer from Sandy Creek, New York. Meacham was passionate about his craft and his community, and he wanted to honor President Jackson with a unique gift that celebrated the region's farming industry. Interestingly, Meacham wasn't even a political supporter of Jackson. This wasn't an attempt to win favor or curry political influence. Instead, it was a gesture of local pride, an homage to the success of New York's dairy farmers. But Meacham wasn't content with simply sending a nice gift. He wanted to make a statement, and so he created a block of cheese unlike anything the world had seen before. The cheese measured 4 feet in diameter, 2 feet thick, and weighed an incredible 1,400 pounds. To complete the presentation, the massive cheese was wrapped in a patriotic belt, emblazoned with phrases like, "The Union, it must be preserved." Yet this wasn't the only cheese Meacham made. While Jackson's cheese was the crown jewel, Meacham also crafted smaller, though still enormous, blocks of cheese for other prominent figures, including Vice President Martin Van Buren and New York Governor William L. Marcy. Their cheese wheels were a comparatively modest 750 pounds each, highlighting the special honor given to the president. Before the cheese reached Washington, it became a spectacle in its own right. Meacham orchestrated grand parades through towns in New York, placing the colossal cheese on a decorated wagon. Townsfolk gathered in awe, celebrating the dairy industry with music, banners, and cheers. The cheese was the centerpiece of these parades, a traveling monument to regional pride. Eventually, it was loaded onto a schooner and sent to the White House, where it awaited its fate. When the cheese arrived, Jackson was thrilled. A man of simple tastes and populist values, he saw the cheese as a meaningful gift from the hard-working citizens he represented. He even wrote a letter of gratitude to Meacham, praising the effort and dedication that went into its creation. At first, the cheese was a novelty, a symbol of the connection between the president and the people. But as the days turned into weeks, and weeks into months, the cheese began to pose an unexpected problem. What on earth do you do with 1,400 pounds of cheese? Jackson tried his best to put it to good use. He ate some, shared chunks with friends, and even gave pieces away as gifts. But these efforts barely made a dent. The bulk of the cheese remained, a towering, unwieldy block that couldn't be stored in a pantry or easily hidden away. With no other options, the cheese was placed in a hallway of the White House. There it sat, exposed to the elements and the passage of time. Washington, D.C. is infamous for its hot, humid summers, and the White House was no exception. The cheese began to age, and not in a good way. The once prized gift became a pungent burden, its odor growing more unbearable with each passing day. The smell was legendary. Reports claimed that the cheese's stench was so overpowering that it could be detected from several blocks away. Imagine living in the White House surrounded by the sour, suffocating aroma of rotting cheese. It was a crisis that no president could have anticipated, and Jackson was stuck. Disposing of the cheese wasn't an option. Doing so would have been seen as a rejection of the people's gift, a betrayal of the very image Jackson had cultivated as a man of the people. In a stroke of political genius, or desperation, Jackson devised a plan to rid himself of the cheese once and for all. As his presidency neared its end in 1837, he decided to host a massive public reception at the White House. The centerpiece of the event? The infamous cheese. Thousands of people from all walks of life flooded the White House, eager to partake in the spectacle. In just a few hours, the nearly 1,400-pound block was devoured. Guests reported that the smell was overpowering, but the party was a roaring success. Jackson's final public reception was one for the history books, and he bid farewell to the cheese and the presidency with a triumphant send-off. However, the story didn't end with Jackson's departure. The cheese left a legacy, quite literally. in the form of its lingering odor. When Martin Van Buren moved into the White House, he was horrified to discover that the smell of the cheese still permeated the halls. Cleaning crews worked tirelessly to air out the carpets, repaint the walls, and replace the curtains. Yet despite their efforts, the stench persisted. To make matters worse, Van Buren discovered another surprise, a second wheel of cheese weighing 700 pounds, also gifted by Meekum and left behind by Jackson. Van Buren eventually held a charity auction to get rid of the remaining cheese, finally ridding the White House of its dairy dilemma. Reflecting on the incident, some have speculated that Meecham's gift may not have been entirely altruistic. Was he trying to showcase the region's farming prowess? Or was this an elaborate prank, a calculated move to saddle Jackson with an impossible gift? If so, it was a masterstroke of trolling, one that history would never forget. This peculiar tale is a reminder that even the most powerful leaders can face the strangest problems. Thanks for diving into this quirky chapter of history. If you enjoyed this story, be sure to like, subscribe, and stick around for more fascinating. You won't want to miss what's next.